Listen, thanks for joining with me this morning for this Thought for the Week. Tony Campolo is a compelling American evangelist. I mean, many of them I don't rate, but I do rate Tony. And he said he was once sitting in a church, a black church, one Good Friday. And the minister began his sermon by quietly saying, "It's Friday, and my Jesus is hanging dead on a tree. But it's Friday, but Sunday's coming." He continued, "It's Friday, and Mary's crying her eyes out, and the disciples are scattered like sheep without a shepherd. It's Friday, but Sunday's coming." And he keeps, as those black preachers can, he keeps on working that phrase over and over again. It's Friday, but Sunday's coming, until he reaches the climax of his great message, and he shouts out, "It's Friday." And the whole congregation stands up and with one voice shouts back, "But Sunday's coming." Remember what happened that first Easter? Journey back with me. It's still dark, and three folk run through the deserted street straight to the house of Caiaphas, the high priest. And a guard stops them and says, "There's no way you're going to be speaking to Caiaphas in the middle of the night." But later on they do meet up with him, and they tell their story. The tomb they had been asked to guard is empty. Caiaphas is puzzled at first, then angry, then thoughtful. And his questioning doesn't shake their story. They hadn't fallen asleep. And so he comes up with an idea. He gave the soldiers money and said, "Spread it about that you fell asleep and somebody stole the body." Now, while this whole debacle is going on, the disciples are also in despair. And finally, Peter says to the guys, "I'm going fishing." What else is there to do? Life's got to go on. They would pick up the pieces that they dropped when Jesus said, "Leave your nets and follow me." Perhaps they would forget. Maybe the sting of the sea in their faces. Maybe the wind in their backs. Maybe the net sliding through their fingers. Maybe the fishing would help them forget. Forget that face, that voice, that smile. Perhaps they could start again. The women, in contrast, were dealing with their grief differently, maybe the only way they knew how. And so that first Easter morning, they made their way back. They had no fancy plan to con the world. They had been there. They'd seen him die. And now all they wanted to do was pay their respects. We can't blame them for what they did that Easter morning. They ran for their lives. But Mary stops and returns and hears the voice of the one who simply says to her, "Mary." And just as suddenly as a new day dawns, Mary understood. Mary knew. She knew then that life is no brief candle that flickers and goes out. That's the message of Easter. A new day dawns for us all. When tragedy strikes and somebody passes from this world, we need to hear the words, "He is risen." That's the message of Easter. It says stop. Stop and listen. Stand still and hear God calling your name. And that's exactly what Mary did. The Lord is risen. May that shout go up in our hearts this morning, as it will be shouted around the world today. The Lord is risen. And the answer is, He is risen indeed. Again, thank you for listening to me this morning, and God bless you on this Easter Sunday.